What's up, guys? With Shirt Po Boy Savage here, episode 2, part 2 here. Before I go any further, I want to remind you. Remember, when you want to use, there's a couple of mods. There's a couple of things I'm going to list in these mods that are not technically mods, but allow you to make use of these mods while still working with your emission equipment, and will allow you to use the law of the Clean Air Act prohibition codes against tampering with emissions equipment, which I got it printed right here, and I got the loopholing. It'll allow you to use the laws against them to do better than them, and give those who advocate in the FUDs advocate removal of private ownership middle finger of your vehicle, middle finger. WEF's peddling that shit. You will own nothing and be happy because they said so. Rights for me, not for thee is the real name of the game. Which means they don't believe in human rights. Which means you can easily call them subhuman and not be an asshole for it. Because they dehumanize themselves with their actions on the rest of us by being misanthropic fucks. Just saying. Number 2. You want to get those installed, and you want to play the game. You want to fucking use the legalese language, but you also want to get this shit tested, like dynoed if you can. Although you will immediately can tell the different results once you get these things done. But still, we want to make sure that the two mods, these types of mods I'm talking about, the things that allow all the other mods to work better, are installed. And 2, you want to make sure that you do proper maintenance on your vehicle, just like normal, but also check on that stuff too. Those are my warnings. Here are the rest of my top engine mods. So I was doing number 6 was cold air intake. Number 7 will be the carburetor enhancer for carbureted vehicles. Electronic fuel injection enhancers for fuel injected vehicles. Now, these babies allow you to plug into the car's ECU if you're using the electronic version, because these old carburetors that have ECUs on them do exist and they work pretty good. You'll want the option to install an ECU to be able to use the electronic carburetor enhancer to maximize its effect. Basically, how the carburetor enhancer and electronic carburetor enhancer work are awesome. What these babies do is they'll plug into your oxygen sensors, then plug into the car's carburetor ECU. Regular carbs need to be adjusted based on the manual you buy from Eagle Research, George Weissman. And it signals the computer not to add more fuel to the system if it senses more oxygen out the tailpipe. Just keep it signaling as normal. When you start doing these modifications to clean up your engine and get better mileage and get lower emissions, so it'll keep the signal as normal. Now. Because again, tailpipe oxygen is going to go up because you're burning the fuel more efficiently with combustion enhancing technology. That's essentially what you're doing. And by burning fuel more efficiently, all while letting the exhaust equipment still do its work the same regardless, not even touching it, there's less shit for the exhaust equipment to deal with, so it has a potentiality to last longer because less shit coming out the exhaust, less shit to deal with. So there you go on that. So, and yeah, it basically signals the oxygen sensors, and then the feedback loops of the sensor, the signaling between them and the ECU, that oxygen levels will stay the same. Will signal them like they stay the same, even though again they're higher because you're burning your fuel better. It's the only way to alter the workings of the emissions equipment without cheating, defeating, bypassing, deleting, pairing, or rendering inoperable, or requiring you to do any of those to make it work. It can easily be argued that it means to help them signal, by signaling them the state to function as normal while you clean up your engine and make your fuel burn better and quicker, so you have lessened the chance of fuel still burning anywhere past 20 degrees after top dead center of the engine crankshaft position. So it's the only way you're going to do it. This is the only enabler of combustion enhancement technology you can actually use that does not violate the Clean Air Act legal codes. The feds can't justify going fucking with you at that point. If your initial combustion's cleaner, less shit for the exhaust emissions to deal with, so they probably might have a chance of lasting longer. And oxygen sensors might not get as clogged up or corroded as easily. And there's going to be less maintenance needed done to them. So again, you're going to be doing the opposite of violating the Clean Air Act while giving them the finger, saying I can do better than you, bitch. Fuck you. Using your, that's what you're essentially. The second big function of the electronic carburetor enhancer is that it pulls a partial vacuum through the float bowl, which allows the air from the outside, ideally going through the air filter, to shoot right through the fuel using one of the air bleeds in the carburetor to froth it up, which makes smaller fuel droplets that can more easily vaporize, which changes the ratio of fuel droplets by lowering them while keeping the vapor up. This largely the same, or cutting back on the total liquid fuel used while maintaining or current fuel air ratios. This partial vacuum through the float bowl to froth up the gas also balances the pressures of the intake, the venturi, and the float bowl, which makes it work better as a whole. The final function of this damn thing is when you let off the gas, the partial vacuum goes all the way up. The vacuum you're pulling goes up, and if you route the return line and such back to the gas tank, and when the vacuum is used, it will send the gasoline back to the fuel tank instead of throwing it down the intake to be wasted. Great. This is something you're going to have to do to ensure that your catalytic converter is going to have enough heat to start working, to continue working properly. Okay, so what you're going to have to do to make sure the intake is the exhaust in the catalytic converter and equipment is going to work properly. You need, because when your combustion's cleaner and done faster, your engine's going to make better use of the fuel to do work. That's going to be cooler. The exhaust is going to be cooler. So you need to thermally insulate your exhaust pipes, and if you got a turbocharger, insulate your exhaust pipe going to your turbo, and after the turbo, and going to the catalytic converter. And if it's cold enough, drops enough degrees, a couple hundred degrees, insulate that catalytic converter, at least half of it, at least the first two catalytic converter stages. This helps a little and helps with the emissions, since you're making sure that more heat energy is still going to be used by the turbo, and there's enough heat retained in the exhaust to keep the catalytic converter doing its job. Excuse me. Better cooling fans for radiators. Replacing your fans with race fans or flex fans will allow more cooling to be done on the same power. If the material is light enough but strong, is designed with good blades, it could pull. If it is, more air could be pulled at idle and reduce engine drag at higher speeds for better power and mileage. 11. Performance exhaust system. After the thermally insulated exhaust and the insulated catalytic converter, after the catalytic converter, it'd be okay to use increase the exhaust tubing size, because that can help make less work on the engine it has to do to pump the same amount of exhaust out. So, you get less energy to push out the same amount of burnt smoke out the tailpipes, lower exhaust gas or smoke temperatures. Only do this after the catalytic converter. Just fair warning. You can use performance fuel pumps to go to the carburetor. You can keep the manual one. It does not matter, but you can use performance fuel pumps that are electronic by making less work on the engine by pumping fuel to the fuel delivery system at a higher pressure, so to some degree. Real good ones will have watering and filtering and dewatering, I meant to say, elements. So less energy for the same work means more efficiency. Number 13. So, sorry, no. So, I meant to say, no, that's number 12, actually. I misnumbered some of these. So we went to number 7. That was... No, we went to number 7. And then we went to... It's number 8, which is insulating your exhaust. Number 9 is cooling prevents for radiators to be better. 10 is performance exhaust. 11, performance fuel pump. 12, engine oil, synthetic engine oil or canola-based engine oil. Synthetic engine oils generally have more stable viscosities across a wider range of temperatures. That's why they kick ass, right? That's why they're great. And relative to conventional or petroleum-based engine oils, particularly after cold starts until full operating temperatures have been reached. Using the postal data illustrated in Figure 6 of a 1996 study of using canola-based engine oil, which will be linked in the description. What they found in an EA85 Ford Explorer provided by the Postal Service was evaluated for non-methane hydrocarbons, which is a lot of overlap with VOCs, which mean volatile organic compounds. So they just use the term NMHCs with VOCs because in this case, due to the overlap between them kind of molecules, it's interchangeable. That's why they made it that way here. Non-methane hydrocarbons or VOCs, they use them as synonyms here. Carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and just and other kinds of hydrocarbons, which they just list as hydrocarbons or HCs, and then oxides of nitrogen. Comparisons were made using the regular manufacturer's recommended 5W30 conventional oil and a bio oil. The bio oil was huge reduction, and all across the board. Carbon dioxide was lowered by 1%. Carbon monoxide was 48%. Hydrocarbons were 32% lower. Nitrogen oxides were dropped by 80%. And the VOCs, or non-methane hydrocarbons, was dropped by 25%. And then they did some tests with Pin and V analysis conducted by Rhodes Consulting showed a lot less friction and a reduced level of friction over a prolonged period of time compared to conventional 5W30 motor oil. Comparisons with synthetic 10W50 show that bio-based oils also outperform the synthetics. Expectations that the oil use of the bio oil can increase fuel economy of vehicles 5% more than conventional oils and 1.5% over the use of synthetics. And it had a better it can handle it only in the bio-based, the canola-based engine oil only started failing at due to high pressure under 1,050 psi on one trial, and another test they did was it only started failing under 825 psi. So pretty good shit. That's something to consider. Now this isn't a mod, but it's an oil change type that could actually get some shit done. Number 13, MAF or MAP MAP as in mass air pressure, MAF as in mass air flow, sensor enhancer circuit. A MAP or MAF sensor enhancer circuit is a circuit that will maintain the regular signaling of the sensor you use this to modify and tell the computer to keep the airflow the same while you're using combustion enhancement technologies and doing hypermiling and doing engine mods to lessen your to raise your fuel economy and lower your emissions. First, let's clarify some basics. I already said what MAP and MAF mean here. Mass airflow measures airflow. Mass air pressure sensor means mass air, the total pressure of the air. And then your intake. So, these devices are designed so similarly that a device that works for a MAP can also work for a MAF. Furthermore, the information to the ECU is used very similarly. Therefore, adjustments to increase to these two types of signals will have a similar result. Most vehicles have a MAF or a MAP sensor, but not both. In these cases, you will treat the sensor you have. Some occasional vehicles will have both a MAP and a MAF sensor. In these cases, trial out treating the MAF sensor by itself and then see what happens. If not, some cases that have both types of sensors respond better to treating the pressure one, the MAP sensor. So if your vehicle has both sensor types and your treatment of the MAF has not gotten you results, try treating the MAP sensor instead. Don't treat both of them because you want to make as little change to the sensors as possible to achieve the result of a lower air-fuel ratio signaling. Just keep it as normal, signaling back with the computer as normal as possible. Treating both sensors will get the ECU confused and mess it up and undo what you're trying to strive for. After all, the information on these sensors is needed for the proper operation of the engine. So that's number 13. Alright, number 14. Water or ideally steam injection. Excuse me. Water injection has been used since well over a century. Now you already hear me. I'm repeating what I said in the 3 basic mods for better mileage and power and lower emissions. So expect some overlap and occasional repeats on some of these videos because there's overlaps a lot in a lot of places. So pardon that if you don't like it. I'm sorry. Like I said, back in the First World War and before, when planes needed to go up higher altitudes, higher up in the air, but they needed to condense the air so it'll actually be able to burn the fuel more appropriately. So just alone on that, water injection is really nice, and it has great promise in cooling, condensing the air through these, and it's expanding into steam under pressure and heat. It massively can increase the thrust without using any more fuel in a thruster. You think about that for a fucking minute. Alcohol water injection will really work in that way. Pretty impressive. I'm going to be rehashing a lot of this when I talk about LNG fucking planes. But now, water injection has multiple benefits to spark ignition and diesel engines, depending on how it's used. Now, diesel engines are a wee bit more fucking finicky to use that on, but it has been made to work. Number 1, it'll quench the flame in the burning of the fuel, henceforth regulate the initial explosion that starts the flame front and regulates the flame front and the burning of the rest of the fuel and air as it mixes and as they mix together and burn. Or when the fuel-air mixture, in the case of a carbureted engine, burns through. by absorbing excess heat, and that turns the water into pressurized superheated steam. It helps push the piston down more evenly and lessens that rocking side-by-side motion by just increases the straight downward motion, pushing motion, if you will. So to do its job of converting this work alongside the fuel burning. So that's number one. Two, due to these various mechanisms and regulate temps in the engine, it also regulates against hot spots, so you can have much higher compression on shittier fuel, theoretically and in practice to some degree, and get better work done on it, or with it, I meant. Three, if the conditions are right, water injection, steam injection, or cooled water vapor injection could go under what's called the water-gas shift reaction in the combustion chamber. Once it turns to pressurized steam, and the steam will be subject to enough heat and pressure to react to carbon monoxide, turn to CO2 and hydrogen. Hydrogen will be a combustion catalyst to help speed up running process. So the higher compression type engines like a HCCI or a diesel engine would be perfect for the water gas shift chain reaction to happen to some extent. Fuel gets injected into number 4. Fuel gets injected into the engines due to the flame quenching, and most, I've talked about it before. When the flame front starts, what vaporizes and burns starts and detonates starts the flame front. The flame front, when the heat and pressure in the air causes the fucking fuel to mix, the fuel droplets to vaporize and burn, continuing the combustion. Some of that fuel has a quenching effect by regulating the temps to some degree by vaporizing and pulling the heat out and vaporizing and burning. So if you can do some of that quenching with water instead of and not need to use as much fuel to do that quenching effort, that's a boon. That is a gain. That's a boon. 5, it can greatly reduce carbon monoxide and nitrogen oxides, or NOx, in a way that's easier to control than EGR, but you can use it with EGR to get greater effect. 6, water condenses the air, and for the air-fuel ratios to be used is better as they get compressed, or in the case of fuel injection engine, the air itself gets compressed before the fuel is injected into it and given a chance to vaporize. Like those reduced NOx Toyota engines that shot their fuel into a pre-chamber, or engines that use port injectors just outside the air intake. 7, due to power, the steam working alongside combustion push the piston down, piston goes down more smoothly. And I already mentioned the side-by-side rocking and gyrating motions, taking a lot of it's cut down. The regulating of things like carbon monoxide and oxides of nitrogen, regulating against hot spots and water gas shift reaction potentials and all that. But due to all these other reasons I've previously listed, you have a potential for overall better power and gas mileage for doing this. The only way to, I'm going to warn you, if you're going to do an electronically fuel injected engine, I will warn you, the only way to do this is if you use a nozzle water injection and make the intake in order to get to your best results. Mechanically fuel injected and carbureted engines can simply use cooled water vapor or steam injection. Cooled water vapor works fine. It gets turned into steam inside of the thing, but steam injection is where it's at, but still be careful. You will need some water injection tool controls to get this shit to give you the best results. For example, A, cold temp shut off. Some engines will need water to be shut off until the engine warms up. So water messes with engines, cold idling, fucks with the engine oil, does all kind of stuff, and has potential for damage. You don't need it then. B, deceleration water shut off. When your engine needs water during heavy workload, not when you let off the gas, and start slowing down by letting off the gas pedal. At this time, your engine's not working, is not doing hard work, and is running cooler. So have a shut off for when you let the gas off. Let it completely cut off when you let go off the gas pedal. C, add more water, a bump more water after you throttle, after your throttling or gas pedal goes off idle, and more again when the engine is working. You can use pressurized system to inject that to do this when the engine is under heavy workload. Let's see. D. Shutoff valve switches or vents. These systems are required to prevent siphoning after the engine is shut off. This mostly happens after you mount your tank above your carburetor's air intake or above the boiler for steam injection if you go that route, and especially if you're using pressure as you would in a nozzle system. Overall, like if you're doing for EFI, electronic fuel injected engines. E. Fine tuning so you will not get an increase in hydrocarbons. F. If using water vapor injection system using a combo of alcohol and water for it, use a vacuum gauge alongside all that above to ensure you get the right amount of water alcohol vapor injection at the right timing and speed. Ensure it's self-regulating operation. Number 15, most pricey one yet, the Coat spherical rotary valve system for the internal combustion engine. This is a big opportunity for those who want to go hit them up for licensing potential that are able to fabricate parts for automobiles. Seek them out if you want to expand your horizons. I'll put that down below. Now I'm going to go into the last couple of things in episode 3, and I thank you all for watching me, and I'll see you then.